Hi, I'm Emily Roger, host of the Boiling Point podcast. My co-host, Dave Veale, and I will bring you thoughtful discussions with leaders who are positively impacting our world. This is The Boiling Point, where leadership and inspiration meet. Here we are, a very special edition of the Boiling Point podcast today, because Dave, it is just you and I.
Yes, we get to just chat, just get to caught
Yeah.
up. And you took the
Yeah.
pressure off. You said, well, it doesn't have to be necessarily interview of you, Dave. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm a lot more comfortable with that.
Well, and I feel I wanted to do this because I mean, gosh, we have such phenomenal guests on all of the time. Yet just a chance for you and I to connect more. And I'm sure that the listeners would love to hear more about you. You're always kind of yeah, it's like it's just like there's more. There's so much more that we can like tap into. And so selfishly, I even just wanted this time with you. And we are leading into the holidays. This is probably like kind of be right before Christmas by the time this airs. And what a perfect time end of year for you and I to just have a little catch up.
I love it. Yeah, and I'm in your hands. So you carry the conversation in the direction you want to, Emily.
Well, first of all, I think that you and I now, we've been doing the podcast together for 2 years and which is wild, right? And working together for a couple of years. And in our last episode, we had Dave Stonehouse and he was speaking around how he notices within the province of New Brunswick, especially that businesses really support one another. And he was telling a story about him speaking with another agency company when he was first getting into the business and how just supportive they were. And that reminded me of, like, of course, I'm going to get emotional. And it was probably like 2.5 years ago where you wrote an article on me in the Fresh Ideas newsletter. And I don't know if I might have known that you were going to write something, but I didn't know anything of like what it was going to be about. And the email popped up on my phone and I'll never forget this. I was in HomeSense in Ottawa and it popped up on my phone and I started reading it. And I sat on like one of the couches that was for sale in HomeSense because I was so blown away by the way that you wrote about me and the way that you uplifted, I mean, like my company outside of vision coaching. And I just thought like, wow, what a man that really supports people and really wants the best for people. And so when listening to Dave Stonehouse tell that story, I was like, yep. And that is Dave Veale to a T.
Wow, that you've never told me that story. That is heartwarming. It's nice. And yeah, I don't even know how to respond other than to say, like I just have always felt that like there's enough for everyone, and I quite enjoy telling other people's stories. And I love when I see people doing amazing things. And I mean, that's probably how we got into coaching, just being curious about other people and what they're doing. And yeah, I found your story fascinating. And it's easy to tell a story about someone else and it's fun and I get as much out of it as anyone else. So, there's some self-motivation there for sure. You know, it's like when you see a client do an amazing thing, right? Or win an award or whatever it might be, or overcome some obstacle that was in their way. You get a little out of it, right? It feels really good. So writing stories about other people and sharing your story in particular was just an easy thing to do, and I'm glad it landed the right way. And maybe that would be my only concern is someone not comfortable. Actually, if I now that I think about it, we talked about this column that I used to do in the Telegraph Journal, and it's called Leadership Unleashed, and I would share stories or just a Q&A with someone, and you'd have to edit it down so it could fit into the column length. And that would be always my big concern, is not how many people were going to read it, but was the interviewee going to be happy with it and the picture? And that
Yeah.
would have literally been the one thing I would be concerned about. So the fact that it was a good experience for you,
Yeah.
that makes me very happy. And I hadn't heard that story, so thank you for sharing it.
Yeah. Well, and I think of that when I have magazines or other editors reaching out wanting to write a story on me. I usually will go to, well, why don't I write it?
Yeah,
Because I can then be in control of the narrative. Because it's, yeah, you don't know what somebody is going to say or how they're going to word something or how you're going to come across. And like that can be a very vulnerable thing.
yeah, or sitting and agreeing to be interviewed by your co-host, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can be it can be a little uncomfortable. So I actually prefer to be on the other side, as you know, and we've talked about. Um, and even going into this, I woke up this morning, I was like, "Ah, I don't really want to do this. Maybe I'll make up excuse." And then I was like, no, because the other thing I've learned and about myself is that, it's important to do the things that are uncomfortable. This isn't hugely uncomfortable, but it's just on the periphery of just outside the comfort zone. Um, but it's if we're asking others to do it, like, we have to role model it ourselves and go do it ourselves. So here we
Yeah.
are. Here we
Yeah.
are. And you have, like, here's me trying to flip the script a bit here, but you have done a remarkable job of that, because you have really put yourself out there in, your fly fishing, but your whole the story of your life, the documentary, public speaking, on and on and on. And I know that that's taken a lot of courage to
Mm.
do. And so I look at that as really good role modeling as well. And I know from the vision client standpoint, I was just looking at an email from you today. Um, you're an easy person to introduce to a client, and generally they don't want to stop working with you, which is good for business. I love it.
Yeah, and it's, even like that courage thing and the ability to like put ourselves out there. What I have really come to learn more and more about myself is that um it's easier and less scary to just show up exactly as we are and to
Yeah,
allow people to see us for us versus doing it the opposite way. And I think that like regardless anytime we put ourselves out there, we're opening ourselves up for judgment or criticism or feedback or whatever it is.
yeah,
But
yeah.
at least people are being able to see me for me.
Right. Yeah. Actually, a number of years ago, there was this CBC was doing they're doing like a pilot, or like a I can't remember what the name for it, but it was a TV show called Headhunter TV, and they did a big call for coaches. And I, this is probably, I don't know, say 2010 maybe. And what they were looking for is people that had coaching credentials, who had some experience being on camera, and who could be authentic. And I knew I had authentic down, and I had just done a documentary on coaching with Greg Hemmings.
Mhm.
So I was getting a lot more comfortable, like, coaching someone, but you're like uncomfortably close and the camera's right there, that sort of thing. So I thought, what the heck? I'll put my video out, and I send it off. And I was honored to be, a couple of people out there had asked or encouraged me to do it, not knowing what would happen. Anyhow, they did a casting call, and they had us go in and coach improv actors. And I went to Montreal and did that. And lo and behold, me and another coach, actually, who we should have on the bowling point at some point, because she's a master certified coach. And she and I, like, met on a TV set, and we started this thing called Headhunter TV. And they did, I don't know how many series things, and it never got never got picked up by the CBC, but it was an amazing experience. Anyhow, the point of me telling you that is I had the authenticity thing down, because I can be me. I don't know if you want me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I have no idea if that's going to resonate for this show. But every time I be me, instead of trying, like, I would tell a story about being, I'd slip into this persona, and I haven't done it in a long time. And I hope I don't do it again, although we're all susceptible. But I would slip into this persona I would call Corporate Dave. And I'm not being fair to people in the corporate world, but for me, that was the best way to describe it, where I just like would try to be buttoned down and say everything correctly and slow down and talk about the ROI of coaching and that persona, let's call it corporate Dave, just was not very successful. And when I slipped into what I call authentic Dave, I've had a lot more success, and I'm not for everyone, and I get that,
Yeah.
but it's just a lot more comfortable, to your point.
Yeah, definitely. I hear you on that corporate side though, and even how individuals can kind of, I'll use the word coaching, although I wouldn't see that that's what it is, but almost want to steer you maybe more in that you need to be more corporate for this position, or you need to kind of tap into more of those like quote unquote corporate skills. So and I can see people, well, and even clients coaching, that it is like, okay, how can you just bring more of you into your corporate role,
Mhm.
and you will feel much more like yourself, and you will be able to tap more into your own leadership skills instead of this kind of cookie cutter approach.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of work around, helping people be authentically themselves, and professional and that sort of thing. And it's a journey. I think it's a journey. I know for me it has been anyways. And you continue to you go through it, and then to your point, like sometimes it's not going to resonate, or I guess maybe it's my point earlier, but it's not going to resonate with everyone.
Yeah.
And being okay with that,
Yeah.
and thinking, okay, well, but I can't change me to try to fit something, because that's hard. How do you show up if you're not showing up as yourself? Like, to me, that's pretty demanding and tough work
Mhm.
to do. So it's probably just easier just to be, yourself. And I do workshops, and like we all do a fair bit of workshops. And the one thing I like to request at the beginning, and I borrowed this from someone else, but I make a request as, for people not to expect me to be perfect. And do they accept that? And people accept it. And I just feel like I relax.
Yeah.
And I feel like the audience kind of warms up to you, because they're going, oh, okay, so he's like me, or like he's like more nervous than I am, or whatever it is. But the point is, it just kind of evens the playing field, and you don't feel like you're this person standing up and, going to pontificate, and so just let me be me, and I might screw up, and I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I think of that is kind of a grace that I have been really trying to give myself more and more around, even with public speaking, and this thing of trying to perfect something. And so even if I look at public speaking and me trying to perfect giving a speech, well, what is that then telling the audience? That they should then perfect everything that they are going to be doing, and how much we get frozen in that state of perfection.
Mhm.
And it's like, why? Like, I try and tell myself more and more of like, Emily, just show up as like 90%. Like, it's
So
fine.
so here's where I think, like, well, which is, like, I think it's a great rule, like that idea, be as close to yourself as you can be, and and but I was thinking, there's one, and it kind of relates, it totally relates to this podcast. But sometimes I think you do a really good job of this, is like there is also where you should, this is more at me, yes, be yourself, but it's probably a good idea to go back and listen to podcasts to see how you're showing up and what you can improve on to be more effective.
Hmm.
And it was really pointed out to me when we did this speaker training. We had the folks on from Vox, and we're doing some work with them. And if we do another public session with them, I'd love for you to be involved. It's really excellent speaker training. But we did a podcast, and I believe, were you part of that, or that was Greg?
No,
Yeah,
I think I was away, and I think Dave was, or Greg was in. Hmm.
Greg jumped in. Okay, because I was going to say, geez, I'm telling a story and Emily was there, but I didn't think you were there.
Nope.
So anyhow, so you probably heard the story. So I'm repeating myself, but they had me read this script verbatim, and it was just like so chaotic. It didn't make sense, and it wasn't like a good cadence. It was. jumbled. The words were all over. And as I was reading it, I realized they had pulled it from one of the podcasts, and it was actually me speaking, and I couldn't even read it back.
Right.
Yeah, it was that. It was that. Like, I mean, maybe I got the point across, but I couldn't even understand what I was trying to read. And it was Emily, it was so funny. And I'm reading this because and they didn't tell me ahead of time. They had me read it. And anyways, I just burst out laughing because I realized like, so that's where, it is good to go back and I could benefit from that big time.
Yep.
Instead because you can get, I guess my point is you can get into the authentic thing a little bit too much where it kind of gives you maybe you take liberties where you can say, oh, it's fine, it's just me. It's like, well, is that the best version of you though, Dave? Or is that 90% of you, like to your earlier point?
That reminds me of two things. One was I don't even remember this was what it was for, an interview for some sort of a film. And I heard back the edited version after, and I out loud said, I was like, wow, I sounded really good. And the editor was like, yeah, I edited that down a lot. And I was like, oh,
Oh, oh,
I was like, wow,
oh, that's
you
great.
made me sound so intelligent. But then I noticed just the other day, I was speaking with someone whose uh, primary language is not English. And I caught myself as to how much I say yes, no, like, like back
Like
to
back
back.
to back? Yeah, yes, no.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
Emily, oh my gosh, like, what is that? And how confusing. Like, but for sure, having those awarenesses, yeah, most definitely. And so I think for everyone who listens to the podcast, they both know that we are leadership coaches, executive coaches. Before I dive into my next question for you a little more, I would love to have your definition of leadership coaching.
Oh my God. That's a
I hate that question, just
it's
so you
awful.
know.
Yeah, yeah. What we do is we meet leaders where they're at. We help them define, with the help of the organization, with various tools, where they want to be. And the leadership coaching is a journey between, that current state and that future state. And it's about building a plan and creating accountability and creating some psychological safety to support someone in that career trajectory or leadership trajectory.
And so you have been in this career now for over 20 years. Is that right?
No, it's 18. We just the vision, and I'm writing an article on this with the help of our good friend Dave Stonehouse about being that 18-year-old teenager, right? So old enough to vote and go to war and drink in Quebec and Alberta, and yeah, so it's been 18 years.
Amazing. So back when you were, quote Dave Stonehouse, a slickster from the Yukon. Um,
I moved from Vancouver, so I was slickster from the West Coast, right?
a slickster from the West Coast.
Yeah.
How did you even like? I feel like now a lot of people don't really know what leadership coaching or executive coaching is.
Hmm.
How did that idea even come to you?
Well, it actually did. Well, it came so it didn't come from me. It came from people I was around me, and I was. I think the time that really where it really kind of became like something I wanted to explore was I was delivering some leadership training for a municipality, and the fire chief, who was he had a master's in leadership, an exceptional guy. He refed in the international hockey leagues and stuff. He was just a neat guy, and he asked if I would coach him, and I was facilitating the training, and I went like, yeah, of course I'd coach you, like not knowing anything about coaching. So I read my first book, Coaching for Performance by Sir John Whitmore, who was kind of the godfather of coaching, who actually Greg Hemmings got on our documentary. Surprisingly, got Sir John Whitmore, And I read the book and I was like, oh my God, this is a thing. But I don't understand what this thing is. So I had to go back to the client and say, I'm really sorry, but I can't deliver this because there's a whole certification process, and I just don't know enough about it. I don't even know how to quote you or anything. Um, and then and then from there, I had this wonderful mentor. Her name was Deb Armstrong. She sadly passed away way too young, but she was kind of my person and my go-to person, and she just put me under her wing, and she always helped, assisted me all like with just getting to know the community and the business and the training world and all that sort of thing. And she was kind of school of hard knocks, so she would I'd be in a situation where like, oh my God, what do I do? I've got this workshop, these guys have gone through this change, like I don't know how to, she'd go, just read this book, you'll be fine, like, so she'd make you do your own work, right? She's one of those people. Anyways, amazing. So she encouraged me. She said, Dave, you should really consider this coaching. And I think the final kick in the rear end to get me going was Mary Ellen, my wife. I was, at the time I was trying to be, I guess it was the only time I'd ever been employed. I've always been self-employed, and we were about to get married, and Mary Ellen was really excited about us, kind of encouraging us to tie the knot, all that kind of stuff, which I was like, thrilled. But she actually said at one point, like you're not happy with what you're doing. You've been talking about this coaching stuff, and I don't want us to get married, and you start thinking that I somehow, handcuffed you into working in this job you're not happy with. You got to go get this coaching education at Royal Roads that you've been talking about. And I was kind of, well, how are we going to pay for, all the things, right? I'm 33, it was early days in terms of the coaching world. Anyhow, she kind of gave me an ultimatum. She said, like, I'm not prepared to get married unless you go. And I was like, I think I should go get that education. So that's the story. And I went, and I was in probably the second day of that first week. And I was, in this beautiful Victoria and beautiful campus of at Royal Roads. And I was like, this is a business. Like, I got to do this. That's, this is amazing. And we're at this tiny little cohort. It's called the Dream Cohort with 13 people. So that was the beginning. And that's where vision coaching, the idea was born.
Wow. Wow. And here you are, like a roster of, gosh, what is it? Is it 20 of us on the roster?
Yeah,
coaching now?
20 plus. I don't know what we're up to now.
Yeah.
20 to 25, that area.
What do you think, kind of like in the last 18 years, where do you think the biggest shift in kind of this coaching culture is? Like, do you feel like just kind of now we're really kind of at a increased trajectory in the like maybe kind of awareness of what coaching is? Or
I think I would say answer it this way. I feel like I've noticed the last few years, I feel like coaching just has more credibility. Like and the example I would give, we did, and we've talked about, we've published articles on this. We started doing work with the New Brunswick Medical Society and a physician coaching program, that professional group who would come for, individuals would come for coaching, but just it was never really supported from an organizational standpoint or like the medical society standpoint. When that happened, that was just such huge credibility. And the program, they put out a call and it was oversubscribed with one email.
yeah.
So that told me a whole bunch, like as an example, because we'd done work, but we could never get the traction, right? And then that happened. I went, oh, so I just use that as an example. So I feel like it's got like, so because the early days would be like, well, what is it? I mean, still early days because a lot of people don't know, aren't sure, but they've heard enough that they're interested and want to learn more, where earlier on it wouldn't even be on the radar. Does that make sense? Like in terms of it certainly gained a lot more credibility.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that even in just the last few years.
Yeah.
And this thing too around, you and I have talked a lot about this before, like the titles of like leadership coach, business coach, executive coach, where it's like coaching is coaching, and how can, or even sometimes that, people who will think that they aren't leaders. Where for me, in my mind, I'm like, we're all leaders.
Mm.
And so, how do you get that message across that like leadership coaching is not just for people in C suite positions or business owners or,
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Early days made the distinction between executive coaching and leadership coaching and executive coaching because people would actually say, "Well, I'm not an executive.
mm,
I'm not in the C-suite." And then it dawned on me, or maybe other people. I'm sure other people were doing it. That yeah, why wouldn't we call this more broadly leadership coaching? Because it kind of fits really at any level. And to your point, some people are just they might not be leading a big team, but it's about personal leadership, right? The vast majority of the coaching we deliver is, the person has direct reports and is leading in some capacity
yeah,
in their organization. But then what's nice about it is it doesn't, it can be accessible at a number of levels. It tends to be the stuff we're offering through Vision tends to be, kind of that director, VP, C-suite level. But you get people at every level that can access it, which I think is awesome. So the leadership became just more broad, and I just felt it. Yeah, the kind of executive coaching definition. I just felt was I kind of ran into a few barriers with it.
yeah. Well, I remember for myself before I even became a coach and reached out to you looking for a coach, and you set me up with Bruce, and thinking that I wanted a coach, but I was like, I don't know if somebody would take me on. Like, I don't know if I'm even qualified to work with a coach because I was so new in my business, and like, and even yeah, my own hesitancy in reaching out to say like, ah, can I be a client? Like,
Yeah, I remember that conversation. It was like, seriously, of course, Emily. But that's good for me to hear that too. And one of the things I really enjoy because I don't deliver as much coaching anymore. I mean, I have a number of I keep a smaller group of clients, and my job is really to keep the coaches busier and try to streamline operations. We won't go there, Emily. And it is like I love the onboarding, and it's hard for me to give it up. But that's where you meet someone. The organization said, "Hey, we'd like to invest in you," and then I get to meet that person and have a half an hour, 45-minute conversation, and just answer any questions they have about coaching, and just help them normalize it and help them see the opportunity in it for them.
yeah,
Because we know that it's kind of like it's like going to the gym. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. So we have this way of assessing readiness, and then we assess fit, right? And we try to match the individual with someone who we feel is a really good fit for them. So I'll hear certain things like I heard the other day, and someone I want to talk to you about later. But there's certain things I'll go, oh, I think this is a really good candidate for Emily. But then you guys would meet and decide, do we feel it's a good fit, or
hmm,
that coach is.
yeah, and I love too, and I asked that question because I have even just recently received messages from people, whether it's on LinkedIn or email, saying like, I don't know if you're taking on clients, or I don't even know if I would be a client for you. But it's like, what are those things that, um, as a professional in coaching, that we can kind of possibly be putting up some barriers that we don't even know, that
Yeah,
people would think that like they aren't credentialed almost to be able to work with us,
yeah,
or people who are like getting into retirement and at that stage of like, okay, what's next, and like, can I hire you as a coach for that? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, that's a perfect fit for it. But yeah, making it more broad.
and more. Yeah, to your point, more accessible, and that is. So with that in mind, and like you would work with a nonprofit leader,
Hmm.
a client of Vision Coaching. And I want to make it accessible to nonprofit leaders, so you have to find ways to do that,
Yeah.
and price points that can make that work. I also feel like it's really important for the small business owners,
Yeah.
And then, but like there, so we found ways, because not everyone has a big budget for development purposes, or sometimes it's the individual that it reaches out and looking for a specific type of coaching. So I agree. Yeah, I think we could do a better job. I don't know. What do you think? How could we do a better job, do you think?
I think it is just continuing to kind of spread the word around what coaching is, and that it isn't just for organizations and like I said, executives or people who think of their ideas of what a leadership position is, that it really is just for anybody who's wanting to find that clarity, who's wanting to figure out like what those next steps are and to better tap into their own potential and
Mm.
personal development and endeavors. And yeah, what do you feel like even now where you are at in your career? And maybe this is too personal, but I'll ask it. You can decide if you want to answer it. What do you find the most beneficial for you in still working with a coach?
Like myself working with the
Yeah.
coach.
Yep.
Oh, I speak about it very. I try to be very transparent. Like I say, like I borrow this from someone else, but beware of the coach who has no coach.
Yep.
And you work with a coach, or probably a
Yep.
number over the years. So have I. And a couple things. One thing is that it keeps me like it's really. I love the way some people like my coach Barb. She lives on the West Coast. Her company's Vision Works, I think. Barb Richards, she's amazing. She's fabulous coach. I've worked with her for a few years. For me personally, it slows me down. It gives me that time to reflect. She's really good at coaching the whole person. So I'm, working hard at building a business with a group of amazing people. And I'm a dad and I'm a husband and, we got 3 kids and I'm trying to, participate in the community and all those things. So like that whole idea of coaching the whole person and within there, I'm trying to carve a way out to help continue to grow this business. And, it's unique to me. And I love that how that supports and keeps me accountable,
Yeah.
and I don't know, like, the amount of times like sometimes think, geez, I'm just today's so busy. I don't know if I got time to get on this coaching call. And I'm saying this as someone who promotes coaching services, right? And I'm like, well, of course I'm going to go in on the call because we're paying for this. And it's like going to the gym, Emily. Like I never regret it after. I'm always like, oh, I feel so much better,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's probably the challenge is just encouraging people to make the time. So that's
Yeah.
what about you? What's your reason?
Yeah, I think that for to really to have someone that like they are not just going to tell me what to do or tell me what I want to hear, and to
Mm,
really kind of challenge me on my thoughts and maybe my perspectives.
mm,
I feel like I mean now that I really know the true value of coaching, and 100% I'm with you on the never trust a coach who doesn't have a coach.
mhm.
It's that like even when I go like a few weeks or a month without having a call with my coach, I can feel myself go into a different headspace, of
Interesting.
maybe like not being as confident like in what it is that I'm doing and what my vision is and what my purpose is, and just really finding that clarity. And I think, especially in a world that is so quickly changing and evolving and is kind of faster paced, and it can be easier with whether it's social media or other people's opinions, like to potentially allow ourselves to get more into our head. And, even 2 days ago, as I'm getting ready for a big trip, I had this moment of thinking, like, oh my gosh, Emily, what are you doing? Like, and
Well, welcome to the club, Emily.
yeah, it's like how many times am I going to have that thought? What am I doing? But I'm glad that I have those thoughts. But
Mm,
then it's like having that space with my coach to be able to kind of like just collect my thoughts and work through what my doubts are and find clarity on that, so that I can then step forward into what it is that I am doing, which is
Yeah.
what I want to be doing and know that I am like called to be doing. But yeah, just that it's like, and I hear it so often from clients of how little we have that space, if not ever, to have a completely unbiased conversation with someone
Yeah. No judgment.
and gain so much value from it
Yeah.
that like at the end of that call, like there is something that we are taking away and doing.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I recall a particular conversation that I was having, and in my head, I convinced myself to not build a coaching training program, which we have now built, called Using the Coach Approach. And the ability just to have someone disrupt the thinking, because
Mhm.
I was kind of going in this pattern of thinking, and it was really like I was carrying some baggage from a previous attempt to bring a program in another company, and I just realized, like, it was just so, like, it was just like, oh my gosh, and it was amazing, and as a result, now we've got there's been uh, a 2-year journey, but we've launched a program and we're out there delivering it, and it's very exciting. It's proprietary, and it taps into all these wonderful skills that and knowledge and abilities that this group of coaches has, and um, so that's pretty cool. And that was one conversation that flipped the switch on that.
Yeah.
And that's so that ability to disrupt thinking patterns, for a skilled coach is really very cool to be on the receiving end of it,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
changing the paradigm, right? And just helping you recognize the paradigm you're kind of maybe in, and how that might be slowing you down.
Yeah. I know I look back on, and I know we speak of Bruce often, and I will forever speak of Bruce often, but it is like gosh, I do not know if I would be where I am. I do not think so personally, professionally, if it was not for my time working with Bruce as my coach, and yeah, me just kind of really just stepping into what I really wanted to be doing, and just how powerful those coaching calls were with him and life changing they were, as my conversations and coaching calls with you that you and I have just kind of hopped on, and you've helped me process through things. And yeah.
Well, and part of that is the biggest part of that is you know you putting yourself in position to be open to having someone disrupt your thinking, or me,
Mhm.
like, so I think there's some really interesting work around helping people be ready for coaching, and I don't know if we do enough of that. And so what I'm trying to do is, in these onboarding conversations I was talking about earlier, before you match someone up and they work at a 6-month retainer, I'm trying to
Yeah.
prep them a bit for what to experience. I think like, there's something out there that could be a lot better, a lot more effective, because it's because you're going to get so much more out of it if you can learn how just to lean into it, and
Yeah.
you just, to me, you've always had that naturally, willing to be vulnerable, kind of, you know, bringing your whole self. Even in podcasts, you just bring yourself, and like, to me, those are the things, level of humility and all these things that I think lend themselves really well to being coachable.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's next for you? What are you like as we kind of like wrap up the year 2023? What's the end of the year going to look like for you, and what are you hoping for moving forward?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, I'm gonna my Christmas gift to myself is a proper microphone for the Boiling Point podcast. So I'm gonna give myself that, because I didn't realize how bad the audio is. So I apologize to people that are listening to it. It's not good audio. So I'll certainly be doing that. Um, the what's next, we've built out a bit of a strategic, not a bit, we built out a strategic plan. Really want to lean into launching this Using the Coach Approach training program. So I'm excited about that. and
Yep.
possibilities that that holds, and the new, the new places that will take us as a group. And so that's very exciting. And then, just on the personal side, our eldest son, this is his last, I think his last year at home. I mean, he's pretty excited about going to university. Unless something changes, he decides to stay home, and for whatever reason. So just trying to really enjoy the time as a family of five. And so that's kind of, I guess, high level sort of the things that I'm looking forward to. I'm also trying to build in like more time to do some of the things that uh, when you get really busy, you just don't have your kind of me time. So I'm trying to work at being better at that. So I'll get you to hold me accountable to that, because it's
Mhm.
really easy to jump into being there for everyone else and kind of forgetting, oh yeah, I want to do this activity, or I want to meet up with these
Yeah.
friends, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Nice.
How about you? Let's end with you. What's up? What's next for you? It's a tough question.
What's next for me? Well, I fly to Africa on Friday.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'll be over there for close to 5 weeks. I'll be in Botswana for a couple of weeks at three different safaris, and then to a fly fishing lodge in Lesotho, and then a fly fishing lodge in Setakama, and then going on a gorilla trek. And while I'm over there during all of that time, I'm filming a short documentary on just sustainable travel and ecotourism, and just the partnership between travel and just the different lodges, and really sharing stories around, especially for the fly fishing lodges, but just how catch and release fly fishing has just greatly impacted these local villages, and what more we can be doing for that. So that is my holidays, which is wild.
That is, yeah. You're. I should have known. I mean, I was aware of it, but maybe not to the extent of what you'd be doing. And I understand you'll still be working with clients while you're away.
I will be. Yeah, yeah.
How
It's such a
you're,
beautiful setup how, like, even with my travel schedule going into 2024, and I'm away a lot this year, doing work with different lodges, and hosting a lot of groups for fly fishing excursions and stuff, but breaking up my time between, like, yeah, having office time or just time that is booked in hotels where I'm sitting just working, versus time then out doing work with lodges or hosting clients and stuff like that. So it's been a really fun kind of like business development time for me, as to like how can I make it all work. And even it's interesting because I was in a conference on Saturday, and at lunch went and took a call, and someone afterwards was like, "Wait, are you working on a weekend?" And it's like, yeah, like I am. And for me, that's totally fine. Like, I
yeah.
just choose the times that I'm going to work, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. And just, yeah, figuring out the ways that for me that like I can still really have that me time, yet take my work with me wherever I go. And, even not that long ago, well, right when I was getting back from my last trip to Bolivia, and someone said to me like, "Oh, good luck getting back to reality." And it's like, "No, this is my reality." And I just actually spent 3 days in a hotel in Santa Cruz, like working and coaching clients before coming back here. And yeah, there's no right or wrong way to do business.
No, it's your way, right? That's the, like, for anyone that's interested in coaching and likes flexibility, that, like, we have that in spades.
Yeah.
And I remember at Royal Roads, I was watching a video, and it was of one of the faculty members coaching from a place kind of on the the Sunshine Coast. And I remember thinking, that's pretty cool. Like, this is 2005. Like, you're making money, you're coaching, you're serving clients, you're doing this cool thing called coaching, and you're doing it from, this remote place. Like, amazing. Now, it's there's more of the digital nomads and that sort of thing now, but I still kind of think like how amazing how you can integrate all those things. So you can do, because there would, if you had some other type of work, it would be hard for you to go to Africa for 5 weeks, but you can actually do it both and like do some amazing things and see some amazing places. And I can't wait to hear about your trip and your travels and the film and everything. And you can be working with people. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And coaching while I'm over there.
Right.
It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I know we're finishing up here, but I'm in this room here. It's in my house. It's a beautiful view. I feel so fortunate to do what we do, and I really was important to me to be close to home as a father. And you met my father, amazing guy. He was
Mhm.
always gone building a law practice, and you didn't you as a kid you didn't get a lot of interaction. I've got it now where I'll say, hey guys, want to do you want to go to whatever? Or, want to come up to the store with me, or want to go? Like, no, we're good, Dad. So I'm like, okay, they clearly see me enough. I'm around. They're probably like, can you go to the uptown office and just give us a little bit of a break? Which I have to do sometimes when they come home after school because we have the Wi-Fi battle, right?
Right.
Well, hey, this has been fun.
Yeah, this
Thank
has
you.
been fun.
For
Thank
us, it has
you.
been. Hopefully, for listeners as well. But I appreciate you encouraging this conversation, and I think you're right. I think we should make sure we do some check-ins because I want to hear when you get back. I definitely want to hear about Africa,
Yeah.
and I can only imagine. I hope you're keeping some sort of journal or video log or something because that will be an incredible experience and good for you. I'm glad you got over whatever doubt you had or fear you had with your support of your coach to like
Yeah.
and embrace it, so that's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, and the whole thing, I mean, I journal for all of my trips, and
Yeah.
even non-trips. And yeah, there will be a videographer with me for almost all of it. The gorilla trek, I'm choosing to do that on my own. Just because that's something that it's like, gosh, I look back at like being a little kid and watching gorillas in the mist and just like wanting to experience that one-on-one so much that I'm like, I don't even know if I want to film crew with
Okay.
that. Like I really just want to be present and just fully experience it. But everything else, yeah, will be documented. So you'll be able to see and hear all about it.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. Well, listeners, happy holidays, depending on when this does come out. Usually they come out a couple of days after we record them. And Dave, thank you for this. And we are going to put all of, I guess, your information and any extras we discussed, which would be vision coaching information in the show notes. And the best place to find that is on our website at boilingpointpodcast.com. We're active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And this video version is available on YouTube and Facebook. So I look forward to the next time we get to record.
Absolutely. Have an awesome trip, Emily.
Thank you, Dave.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Follow or subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app or visit boilingpointpodcast.com for more.